Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Maturation 101. And I'm your host, Dr. Chris Heidelberg. Throughout this program, we're going to be talking about how maturation is the key to love, success, and just living. And the idea came out because my girl was saying, "You got all these ideas about this stuff, and it works. And I've seen how you do it. Why can't you talk about it?" And I said, "Okay." So I decided to do it since edutainment and convergence is actually how it's a theory I came up with, and it actually works. We were talking about cell phones and whatever. I decided to use this convergence device. And what's going to be real interesting is how my look actually changes because I'm actually doing this whole transformation thing myself. So you guys will get a good look at me. I decided to go casual. Sometimes I'll be dressed or whatever. Just so you know, I'm a little bit about me. I'm an old Marine. I did a little bit of everything, producer, TV producer, and then all of a sudden, after Hollywood, I decided, oh, let's go back and do the whole PhD thing and getting it in higher ed because it took advantage of all the science background I had, all the TV, all the writing, the arts background, and all that led me. And of course, my mom did therapist and she was an educator and a state farm agent. So all these things led me to where I am now with you. So let's start talking about it, especially I'll tell you right now, talk a lot about men and women, but I also have a special emphasis on people of color and African American, obviously because I am. So if you feel like sometimes I'm not talking about you, pay attention because anything that happens to people of color, especially black people and brown people, it's coming to a Caucasian or slash Anglo neighborhood near you. That's generally how this works in this country. Uh, when we're talking about maturation, we're looking at men and women's relationships and as well as relationships with ourselves. Part of the reason that a lot of us, and I look at my psychology friends, and we have this conversation, and I always remind everyone, because I started in communications. I'm a communicator. Everything begins in my theory in entertainment convergence. You can't learn anything without communication. And the number one problem we have, why we have issues with financial issues and relationship issues, is that there is a communications gap because people are not taught this stuff. So, I'm one of these people who primarily was raised by a single mom, but my parents were married and they divorced when I was young and I was the oldest. So, some things about manhood, well, it took longer to learn. And by and large, what I've noticed, because I can say I'm already past that age now, men, we really don't grow up till we're about 45. Because it's by that time that life and the idea that we might actually either we could be ill, we could be sick, we have to take care of someone. Our mortality really hits us. We're in our 20s and 30s, in this thing in our teens, and we chase them. We're not on the same page as women when they're in their 20s, but they've got a plan about the house, the dog, the kids, whatever. And that's primarily because they have to, because they have a limited time frame if they're going to be having a kid. So they're already ahead of us. And that's what's causing a lot of the problems right now because guys have too many options. Talking about African American men, especially in inner cities, we got another problem going on with the criminal justice system because a lot of these young men are getting marked with records for just low level drug offenses, and then it marks them for the rest of their lives. And to the point where you can't even, some offenses, you can't even get real financial aid. So you got to pay your way through. So we're already starting out, especially black and Latino men, we're starting out with a strike against this. And so, therefore, what we have is a situation where the women are doing better than the men, which also coincides. Now, this is a phenomenon that's been going on in the African American community for years. And now it's hitting Anglo America, where you're seeing women. I think 2010, 2 years after I got my PhD, a study came out and it talked about 2010 was the first year where women actually were getting more advanced degrees, graduate level degrees, PhDs, JDs, etc., MBAs than men. Well, I got news for you. This is going to continue because in real time, what's happening is women tend to develop faster. And guys, we're a little behind the eight ball. So what we're going to do is we're going to coach each other up on this. Because what I'm finding a lot of times, having been also in the classroom for about 10 years now, at a private school and then also a private university and also at a community college, because I like the community college student because that's real life. In the private schools, it's not real life, but those kids have better tools on the campus and everything to get help. In the community college, these are people who everybody has serious, but these are the problems you read about and you hear about in the news on a regular where they have real problems where am I going to eat today or am I going to come to class? It's like that. And I'm not talking about, well, in the dorm we're going to eat. I'm talking about, are me and my family going to eat? And there may be kids involved. So let me talk a little bit about this. This pollen season is a beast. One of the first things that we've got to be clear about, there is a maturity gap between men and women, and especially when they're younger. But we have got to find a way to communicate. I suspect what's going to happen, and what you're seeing more of, is you're going to see uh, younger women either, especially in African American, they're gonna start going older with guys who are mature and have something going for them until the young men can get it together. Unfortunately, in the African American community, a lot of what you see is really, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like a replay of slavery all over again, because you're these young men who weren't raised by men, who, because of, if you, and I don't want to sound like some ultra right wing conservative or anything like that, but unfortunately, one of the downsides of welfare was this: the men couldn't be in the house. So in the African American community, you're now going into generation 2 and 3 of men not being in the house, and so we're seeing the results of that now. And what I've got to say is that, as I'm getting my water, because I'm not going to stop recording because I'm on a roll here. I'm going to do this. What we have now is a situation where we have a lot of young men who did not have that at home, yours truly being that. And so we're going through some untreated things that follow us through our lifetime on manhood and what it is and what it isn't. And, for example, there's a guy out there who has a whole thing. It's Michael something. I'll get his name for future references, but he talks about the bro code, about how men can't show emotions and men can't do this and don't cry and all that. Well, that's part of the problem. We've got to get past some of these gender roles that we have, because it's affecting how things get done. And we're going to take a break on this one because we're at the 7-minute mark, and I'm going to come back to you.